much do we really know about the foundational ideas that, shape so much of the world, ideas that still feel incredibly relevant?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Often opens up more questions.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take a whole stack of sources, research, articles, notes, you name it, and we try to pull out the most important bits, the key insights.
And for this deep dive, we've been looking into a really rich set of materials on the Indian Knowledge System, or IKS, and the Bharatiya Education System, DES.
Right. Our mission, really, is to unpack all this and figure out how these ancient systems created such a joined-up, integrated approach to life and learning. There's some profound lessons in there, even for today.
Definitely.
As we were going through the sources, what really jumped out at me was just how holistic everything was. And interdisciplinary, too. Much more than I think people generally imagine.
That's spot on. When we talk about the Indian Knowledge System, IKS, we're talking about this massive, cumulative body of knowledge. It grew and flourished in the Indian subcontinent over thousands of years. And it covers such a vast range. I mean, sure, philosophy and spirituality, but also science, arts, medicine, really advanced mathematics, astronomy, linguistics, plus all sorts of practical skills.
Wow.
Fundamentally, it's a holistic way of trying to understand the universe, our place in it, and how everything is sort of interconnected.
That paints a really vivid picture of what IKS is. But maybe the crucial question for us, and for you listening, is why should this ancient wisdom matter today? What's the relevance now?
Yeah, good question. What's really striking is its focus on holistic development. IKS wasn't just about, getting smarter intellectually. It aimed for the integrated development of the whole person, physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual dimensions. The goal was overall well-being, self-realization. They called it purnada, or completeness.
Purnada. Completeness. I like that.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, you find lots of principles within IKS, like in Ayurveda.
The traditional medicine system.
Exactly. And Vastu Shastra, which deals with architecture and space. Both of those actively promoted living in harmony with nature, sustainable practices.
Oh, okay.
So you find these surprisingly practical insights that are, frankly, incredibly relevant for the environmental challenges we're facing right now.
Like what, for example?
Well, take Vastu Shastra. Understanding how climate and local materials affect well-being, that can directly inform how we think about sustainable building today. It's not just theoretical.
That's a huge point. Ancient ideas offering potential fixes for modern problems. Our sources also really highlighted the deep ethical core, didn't they? Values like truth, nonviolence.
Absolutely. Compassion, too. And the problem-solving methods. Some of the mathematical algorithms, the systems of logical reasoning, even medical diagnostics found in ancient texts are genuinely remarkable. Sophisticated stuff.
They really are. It makes you wonder, how did they manage to build systems that covered so much ground?
Well, part of the answer, I think, is that interdisciplinary nature we mentioned.
Right.
IKS often just blurred the lines between different fields, science, philosophy, spirituality. They weren't in separate boxes like we often see today. They were woven together, which allowed for a deeper, more integrated understanding of really complex issues.
That specific point, the interdisciplinary aspect, that really resonated with me. It wasn't just one track. And the sources give us glimpses of so many diverse systems within IKS.
For sure. We mentioned Ayurveda for health.
And yoga for mind-body harmony.
Exactly. And then there's the mathematics, Ganita, just incredible advancements there.
Like the concept of zero, right, that came from there.
It did. And the development of zero wasn't just, adding another number. It fundamentally changed global mathematics. It enabled calculations that were simply impossible before.
It's hard to even imagine maths without zero now.
It underpins so much. And beyond that, you have texts like the Arthashastra.
Which is about what? Statecraft?
Statecraft, economic policy, military strategy, a really detailed treatise. And it wasn't just abstract thought, it extended to very practical skills too. Advanced metallurgy, complex textile production, even shipbuilding.
So real-world engineering and design knowledge.
Definitely, deep practical knowledge.
Okay, so with this incredible range of knowledge, you have to ask, how did they organize it all? How did they preserve it? And that seems to bring us to the idea of Shastra. What exactly is Shastra? Why was it so central?
Right. Shastra. In essence, a Shastra is a systematic body of knowledge. It could be a treatise, a scientific discipline, or maybe a set of rules or principles.
Okay.
They are basically foundational texts that codify knowledge in a structured, often authoritative way. Think of them as comprehensive guides.
How were they written?
Often presented as concise aphorisms, they called them sutras, or sometimes as verses, shlokas. The main goal was always to teach, to instruct, and provide a framework for understanding and using that specific knowledge.
So they were like the blueprints for everything. That sounds absolutely crucial for keeping all that knowledge alive, especially without printing presses everywhere.
It was vital. Shastras were the primary way huge amounts of knowledge got preserved and passed down through generations. They ensured continuity.
Made sense.
They provided a common structure, a reference point that scholars and practitioners could all turn to. And many of them, especially the Dharma, Shastras, and Smritis, also laid down ethical, moral, and social codes.
Guiding principles for living.
Exactly. Guiding individuals and society towards, well, righteous living and harmony.
That systematic structure must have also helped new ideas develop, right? It sounded like the Shastras weren't just rigid rules, but more like living frameworks.
Okay.
Can you give an example of how they might have actually encouraged, say, critical thinking or new discoveries?
That's a great point. Yes, their systematic nature, especially the use of those concise sutras, actually invited commentary and debate. Scholars would write these elaborate commentaries called bhashanas on the sutras, and in these commentaries, they'd offer new interpretations, sometimes even challenge earlier ideas.
Leading to more discussion.
Exactly, which led to further debate, refinement, and development of the knowledge. So the very structure was foundational, yes, but it was also designed to be open to rigorous intellectual exploration and expansion, not just a static list of rules.
That makes sense. It keeps the knowledge alive.
Now, when we look at the Shastras overall, there's a broad classification based on whether they accept the authority of the Vedas, which brings up an interesting point. What did authority really mean back then?
Yeah, I was wondering that. Did it mean just blindly following?
Not really blind obedience. It was more that the Vedas were seen as fundamental, reliable sources. They provided the foundational principles, kind of like foundational theories in science today, upon which you could build further inquiry.
Okay, so starting point.
A reliable starting point. So first you have the Vedic or Astika Shastras. These are the systems that accept Vedic authority.
Right.
This includes the Vedas themselves, Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharva Veda as the absolute foundation. Then you have the philosophical Upanishads, which are like the concluding parts of the Vedas. And the Vedanga's 6 auxiliary disciplines, things like grammar, Vaikarana or astronomy, Jyotisha, considered essential for understanding the Vedas.
Tools for interpretation.
Precisely. Then the Upanishads, these are more like applied sciences, Ayurveda for medicine, Arthashastra for economics and politics.
We mentioned those.
And finally, the epic histories, the itihasas, like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, they weren't just stories. They conveyed crucial moral and ethical teachings through these really engaging narratives.
So a whole ecosystem built on that Vedic foundation.
Yeah.
But then you mentioned the other category, the Avedic or Gnostica Shastras. These don't accept Vedic authority.
That's correct. And this really shows the sheer diversity of thought that existed. It wasn't monolithic at all.
So what are some examples there?
Well, you have Buddhist literature, like the Tripitakas, which contain the teachings of the Buddha, and Jain literature, such as the Agamas, which hold the teachings of Mahavira. There was even a school called Charvaka or Lokayata, a materialistic school, though most of their original texts are lost now.
Wow. So acceptance of the Vedas wasn't a prerequisite for contributing to the knowledge system.
Not necessarily for developing influential philosophical or ethical systems. It shows a really rich landscape of intellectual debate and inquiry where different viewpoints could coexist and, flourish.
So this is incredible. This massive body of knowledge spanning science, spirituality, ethics,
Yeah.
Vedic and Avedic traditions. How on earth was it actually spread and kept going for literally millennia without, email or the internet?
Yeah, it's amazing. A huge part was a highly sophisticated oral tradition. It's often split into Shruti and Smriti.
Okay, what's the difference?
Shruti literally means what is heard. It refers to knowledge considered divinely revealed, like the Vedas themselves, passed down orally with incredible precision. Think verbatim transmission.
Wow. And Smriti?
Smriti means what is remembered. This refers to knowledge derived from human tradition, wisdom, interpretations of Shruti, things like the epics, law codes, shastras we discussed. Both were vital.
How did they ensure accuracy, just orally?
Through really rigorous memorization techniques, complex mnemonic devices, chanting patterns, it was an incredibly disciplined process. But beyond just oral transmission, the Guru-Shishya Parampara was absolutely central.
The teacher-disciple relationship.
Exactly. That personalized, immersive lineage. Knowledge wasn't just downloaded, it was imparted directly, guru to shishya, often in a residential setting. This fostered deep understanding, character building, not just information transfer.
That sounds very different from modern classrooms. And the language, Sanskrit, must have been key too. You mentioned its structure earlier.
Absolutely. Sanskrit's highly structured and precise nature made it an ideal scholarly medium. It allowed for clarity and consistency across different regions and over time.
A common language for scholars.
Yes. And crucially, there was also a vibrant tradition of debate and discussion. Shastrartha, they called it.
Yeah, Shastrartha.
Yes. Formalized intellectual debates, philosophical arguments held in assemblies and universities. This wasn't just arguing for fun, it was a core method for refining knowledge, exploring different interpretations, expanding understanding. It really fostered critical thinking.
So knowledge wasn't static. It was constantly being tested and developed through debate.
Constantly. And finally, don't underestimate travel and pilgrimage. Scholars and students moved around. They traveled to different centers of learning, which was essential for exchanging ideas, texts, and different regional approaches.
A network of knowledge sharing, just slower than today.
Mm.
Okay, so all this knowledge, these transmission methods, they fed into a specific approach to education. Let's dive into the philosophy and evolution of the Bharatiya Education System, the BES. What was its core philosophy? Was it just about learning facts?
Oh, far from it. The philosophy of BES was fundamentally holistic. We keep coming back to that word, don't we?
It seems central.
It really is. Education wasn't just about intellectual growth. It aimed for the all-round development, that purnata, again, of the individual. Moral, ethical, spiritual, physical, emotional. All faculties were important.
The whole person.
The whole person. And it was deeply dharma-centric.
Meaning
it emphasized understanding and fulfilling one's inherent duty, one's righteous conduct, dharma, not just for personal benefit, but for the well-being of the whole community, the whole society.
a sense of purpose beyond oneself.
Exactly. And often, the ultimate aim was framed as self-realization, or moksha, liberation from suffering, a deep understanding of one's true nature and connection to the universe.
So knowledge for life, as some of the sources called it. It sounds incredibly practical, relevant to actually living, not just knowing stuff.
That's the idea, preparing individuals for their roles, their contributions. And yes, it wasn't just rote learning. There was a strong emphasis on experiential learning, direct observation, practical application, learning by doing, essentially.
Not just abstract theory.
Precisely. The history of BES kind of tracks this evolution. If you go way back to the ancient period.
The Vedic times.
Yeah, roughly 1500 BCE onwards. Education was primarily oral, happening in gurukuls through that Guru-Shishya Parampara we talked about. Students literally lived with their teacher.
Immersive.
Very. Then later in the post-Vedic era, you see the rise of these amazing international centers of learning, places like Taxila or Takshashila and Nalanda.
Ah, the famous universities?
Famous for a reason. They attracted scholars and students from all over Asia, and the subjects taught were incredibly diverse: medicine, mathematics, astronomy, logic, philosophy, statecraft, you name it.
Truly global universities, centuries and centuries ago. Incredible. What happened next? Our sources mentioned a decline in the medieval period.
That's generally true. Around 1200 CE to 1757 CE, the major universities like Nalanda did decline due to various historical factors. But the traditional systems didn't vanish. Gurukuls and also pathshalas, more local schools, persisted, keeping learning alive, just perhaps on a smaller, more localized scale.
Okay, so it adapted. Then came the colonial period.
Right, 1757 to 1947. This marks a big shift with the introduction of Western-style education by the British.
Aimed at creating administrators,
Yeah,
right?
largely, yes. Producing clerks and administrators for the empire. A key moment was Macaulay's Minute in 1835.
What did that do?
It strongly advocated for English as the medium of instruction in higher education, promoting Western knowledge over indigenous systems. This had a huge impact, leading to a further decline and marginalization of traditional Indian education.
A real turning point.
A major one. And that brings us to the modern period, post-1947, after independence. There have been ongoing efforts since then to sort of rediscover, revive, and integrate elements of IKS back into the mainstream.
And that's where things like the recent National Education Policy, NEP 2020, come in.
Exactly. NEP 2020 explicitly recognizes the value and importance of IKS. What's really fascinating now is seeing how these ancient ideas are being re-examined, not just as history, but for their potential relevance to contemporary education and modern challenges.
It feels like a circle closing, in a way.
In some ways, yes, a reevaluation of deep roots. Now, when we talk about the institutions, we use terms like Gurukul, Pathshala, Vidyalaya, Vishwavidyalaya. It's helpful to quickly understand what each represented.
Let's do that. A gurukul, we touched on this, was the guru's home, essentially. A residential, holistic place where students lived with the teacher.
Correct. Learning everything from scriptures and philosophy to practical skills, ethics. It was total immersion, often supported by community contributions, dakshina, rather than fixed fees.
Sounds intense, but deeply formative. What about a pathshala?
Pathshala was generally a more localized, non-residential school. Maybe think of it like a primary school, often attached to a temple or run by a local scholar.
So more accessible for basic learning.
Yes, focusing on basic literacy, arithmetic, maybe some local traditions, more widely accessible to the general population than a gurukul might have been.
Got it. And vidyalaya.
Vidyalaya is a more general term, really just meaning abode of knowledge. It could refer to a school, perhaps something akin to a higher secondary school, more formal than a pathshala, but less all-encompassing than a gurukul or a Vishwavidyalaya.
Okay, which brings us to Vishwavidyalaya. That sounds grand.
It does. It translates to something like universal abode of knowledge. These were the big ones, the
Yeah.
ancient universities like Nalanda, Taxila, Vikramshala, Vallabhi.
The Harvards and Oxfords of their time.
You could say that. Large, organized centers of higher learning, real precursors to modern universities. They fostered advanced studies, research, intense intellectual debate across a huge range of subjects, attracted the brightest minds from across continents.
Wow. Just mapping that out shows such a sophisticated structure for education over time. So let's try and wrap this up a bit. We've explored how the Indian knowledge system offers this incredibly holistic, interconnected, interdisciplinary way of looking at knowledge.
Deeply rooted in ethics and values.
Right. And how the Bharatiya Education System over millennia aimed to provide this really comprehensive, life-oriented education evolving through different institutions.
And understanding these systems, it isn't just a history lesson, is it?
Not at all.
It offers genuinely different perspectives on learning itself, on sustainability, on how we think about well-being in society, things that are incredibly relevant right now. What really stands out to you after diving into all this?
For me, honestly, it's that sheer breadth and depth, like you said, but also the interconnectedness, how nothing seemed totally separate. It wasn't just about piling up facts. It was about developing a whole person integrated into their world. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What our modern education systems, which can sometimes feel quite fragmented, might gain from rediscovering even a little bit of that integration.
It's a powerful thought.
Which leads to a final thought for everyone listening. Given this incredible breadth and depth of the Indian knowledge system and its focus on holistic development and this idea of knowledge for life, what forgotten principles might our modern education systems benefit most from rediscovering or maybe reintegrating to better equip people for the sheer complexity of the 21st century?
That's something worth pondering, definitely.